So, to start today, I want to try something a little different. I want to try and hack your memory for a second.
Yeah.
Even if you're not what you'd call a car person. I bet this image is, well, it's somewhere in your head. So close your eyes. Unless you're driving, please don't do that.
Yeah.
And picture a white Toyota AE86. It's the 90s, nighttime, Japanese mountain pass. And the pop-up headlights are cutting through the fog, and the car is just sliding sideways around a hairpin turn. Now, what's the music playing in your head?
Oh, that's easy. I don't even need to be a mind reader for that one. It's fast, it's frantic, it's got those piercing synthesizers, it's Eurobeat. If you grew up with the anime Initial D or even just saw the memes years later, those two things they're just fused together.
Exactly, fused. You cannot separate them. But here's the thing, and this is why we're doing this deep dive. Most people see that image, they hear that music, and they think, man, what a throwback.
Right. A relic.
A relic. It's a 90s thing, maybe early 2000s. It's nostalgic, sure, but it's over, a closed chapter.
That is the common assumption,
Yeah.
It's seen as this very specific artifact of, like, the cassette tape era, a fun memory, but something we've moved past.
Well, hold on to your seatbelts, because our source today is going to completely flip that script.
Yeah.
We are looking at a really fascinating column by MMR. It's titled Beyond Drift, Eurobeated DM and the Future Form of Speed Memory. It was just published in October 2025.
And it's not a history lesson. Not at all. This article argues something pretty radical. It says Eurobeat isn't dead. It suggests it's evolving. It's transforming from just a music genre into a high-tech interface for what the author calls speed memory.
It's moving from cassette tapes and rusty cars to the absolute cutting edge. We're talking AI, VR, even autonomous driving.
Yeah.
So our mission today is to explore how that's happening, how this music is becoming a cultural device that translates physical speed into emotional acceleration.
It's a fascinating look at how culture and technology merge. It really challenges the idea that speed is just a number on a dashboard. Shall we jump in?
Let's do it. So to understand where we're going with AI and VR, we have to look back. The source analyzes that late 90s era, the whole initial D boom, and it makes a really bold claim right away. It says the link between the drifting and the music wasn't just, a stylistic choice. It wasn't just cool background music.
Right. The author calls it get this, a device to translate time distortion into sound.
Whoa. Okay, that's a heavy concept. What does that actually mean?
It is, yeah. But let's break it down. Think about when you're in a high-stress, high-speed situation, driving at the limit
Or even just sprinting for a bus.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Your perception of time changes. Things seem to slow down or maybe speed up because of the adrenaline. The argument here is that Eurobeat was the sonic equivalent of that physiological state.
Okay, let's get into the weeds on this.
Yeah.
Because the article actually lists the specific sonic ingredients. It wasn't just fast music.
No, it was very specific. First, the tempo. Eurobeat is almost always over 150 BPM, beats per minute. That's way faster than most pop music at the time, and it lines up with a heightened heart rate. But then you have the texture. The source highlights the extremely bright synth leads.
Those are those piercing, high-pitched melodies that just slice through everything else on the track.
Yes, they grab your attention. It's an urgent sound. And then there's the repetition. The source talks about the excessive use of reverb and hand claps. It creates this relentless hypnotic grid.
It really is hypnotic if you listen for too long.
And that's the point. The author says these elements combine to visualize the internal time of the driving body. Think about that phrasing. It's not about the car's speed on the speedometer. It's about how fast the driver feels they're moving inside their own head. It converted physical velocity into emotional velocity.
That makes so much sense. That's why you can listen to Eurobeat in a boring office and still feel like you're going 100 miles an hour. It's hacking your internal clock.
Precisely. It's a simulation of speed without the actual movement. And this is where the source makes its first big leap into today. It points out a paradox. Cars are getting quieter, right? Think electric vehicles. And music is on these sterile streaming platforms. But that human need for the sensation of acceleration, that hasn't gone away.
So where did it go? If Eurobeat as a mainstream genre kind of died out, who inherited that energy?
The article argues it was inherited by genres like EDM, trance, synthwave, and especially hyperpop. And the source is really clear here. It's not that these genres are copying the style of Eurobeat. They're not using the same cheesy sounds. But they inherited the acceleration. They are engineered to trigger that same rush.
It's like the ghost of the mountain pass is haunting Spotify. The body of the music changed, but the spirit's the same.
In a way, yes. And that leads us perfectly into the next part because it's not just a subconscious influence. We're seeing a very literal revival happening.
Right. The source points out that in the 2020s, you see these young artists, people who maybe weren't even born when Initial D first aired. They're using tags like Eurobeat Remake and Nightcore Revival all over YouTube.
And it's not just a retro thing. It's not just nostalgia. The source identifies this core philosophy connecting 90s Eurobeat to modern hyperpop. It calls it sound design for elation.
I love that phrase, sound designed for elation. It sounds like engineering, like it's utilitarian, not just art.
There's a quote in the source that I think is it's pivotal to this whole discussion. It's from an anonymous Eurobeat producer in a 1998 interview. They said, "Speed is the language of the era."
Speed is the language of the era. Wow. That feels even more true today than in 1998.
It does, but the meaning of speed has shifted. This is where it gets really interesting. The source argues that in our digital age, speed isn't just tempo or miles per hour. It's now emotional calculation speed.
Emotional calculation speed. That sounds like something out of a sci-fi novel. What does that mean here?
Think about the internet, TikTok, the amount of information you process every single minute. We need music that matches that processing speed. The fast music of the 90s was matching a physical car. The fast music of the 2020s hyperpop nightcore is matching the speed of our digital lives.
So Eurobeat was basically the precursor to the hyperpop brain. It was training us for high-speed information.
You could definitely argue that. It set the baseline for how high-energy electronic music can function as a stimulant. It prepped our brains for the pace of the 21st century.
Okay, so we've got the theory and the history. But this is where the source takes a hard left turn, pun intended, into pure technology. We're moving from music theory to automotive tech.
Yes, this is where the rubber meets the road, literally. The source says Eurobeat is moving from the mountain pass to the orbit, their metaphor for digital and VR spaces. And it introduces something called reactive BGM engines.
This part blew my mind. So we're talking about actual cars in testing right now that analyze real-time data. Vehicle speed, steering wheel angle, tilt sensors, GPS.
And it doesn't just show you that data. The car uses that data to remix the music on the fly.
So wait, if I'm driving and I turn the wheel sharply, the music actually changes.
Exactly. The system automatically adjusts the tempo, the reverb, the EQ, based on how you're driving. You accelerate hard, the tempo spikes. You drift a corner, maybe the reverb expands to create this huge sense of space.
So the behavior of the car plays the music. The car is the instrument. The driver is the DJ.
That's the aha moment. It's a technological reenactment of the Initial D experience. In the anime, the music felt synced because an editor cut it that way. Here, it's synced because the car is literally generating the sound from physics.
That is unbelievably cool. But the source also says this isn't just for physical cars, right? Because I don't think my insurance company would appreciate me trying this.
Right. So the source discusses the application in virtual reality driving. Here, they're integrating environmental sounds, wind noise, tire friction, the echo in a tunnel directly into the Eurobeat track.
So the sound of the wind becomes part of the beat.
Yes. It just ramps up the immersion. The source calls this future driving memory. It's not about recreating the past. It's about creating a new kind of memory where the environment and the music are one thing. The drive is the track.
I love that. Future driving memory. And speaking of things that sound like futuristic art projects, the source moves on to art installations. How Eurobeat is shifting from listening music to experience music.
This is a crucial shift. For decades, music was something you bought and listened to passively. Now it's becoming a space you inhabit.
The source mentions a performance called Mobile Sound Live. The details on this were wild.
This is fascinating. They have special vehicles with these huge sound systems, and again, acceleration data changes the live audio, but they get really specific. For example, when the car drifts, the system cranks up the hi-hats.
The hi-hats. Why the hi-hats?
Because the hissing, metallic frequency of a hi-hat mimics the sound of tires breaking traction. It's a sensory link. When the car corners hard, it distorts the bass. So the physical stress on the car becomes sonic stress you can hear.
That's so visceral. It's turning physics into audio. But there was another one mentioned I thought was just awesome, the sound tunnel.
Ah, yes, the walking drift.
The walking drift. I mean, who doesn't want to feel cool walking to the grocery store? Explain this.
So this is an interactive installation. You walk through a tunnel, and sensors track your movement. The faster you walk, the higher the pitch and tempo of the music. You change direction, the sound pans around you. Your own body generates the Eurobeat track.
So my boring walk to the fridge could have a high-speed chase soundtrack if I do it with enough intensity.
In this installation, yes. The source says this creates a walking drift. You don't need a car to get that emotional acceleration. You become the engine.
And then there's the club concept, the virtual mountain pass night.
This reimagines the nightclub. The DJ booth has a mountain backdrop on screens. The dance floor is the curve of the road. And the audience, their energy is the engine.
It really shows how Eurobeat is becoming participatory. It's not something you hear, it's something you do.
Which brings us to the final frontier in the source, AI and ownership.
Okay, this is where it gets really interesting for the tech crowd. AI drift remixing. This sounds like the next logical step.
It is. The concept is you input a driving log, your speed, your route, the curves you took into an AI. The AI analyzes that data and just generates a unique Eurobeat track matched perfectly to that drive.
Your drive becomes a song. Literally.
Exactly. Every drive is unique, so every song is unique. Drive aggressively, get an aggressive track, take a smooth cruise, get a chill track.
The source says this is already fueling social media, and I can totally see this being huge on TikTok. You don't just post a dash cam video, you post the generated soundtrack of your commute.
It's a whole new format for sharing. The source calls it a format for sharing driving sensations. You're letting someone else hear the adrenaline of your trip.
And then, of course, we have to talk about NFTs, but the source has a pretty interesting take on it.
It's not just about selling digital art, it's about preserving an experience. The source suggests you could NFT a specific combination. This curve, this speed, this sound.
So I could own the experience of drifting one specific corner at 80 kilometers an hour with a specific beat.
That's the idea. The view here is that this turns Eurobeat into preserved acceleration. You're archiving a moment of adrenaline on the blockchain.
Preserved acceleration. That's a powerful phrase. It's like catching lightning in a bottle, but the lightning is a synthesizer and the bottle is a crypto ledger.
It's a hell of an evolution. We started with a soundtrack to a cartoon. We're ending with Eurobeat as a digital code for re-experiencing physical motion.
So let's bring it all back. We started this thinking about a nostalgic anime. We thought we were just talking about some funny, fast music, but what we found is that the spirit of that music has become a blueprint for future tech interfaces.
The source summarizes it perfectly. It says Eurobeat is no longer just a genre, it is a code for recording, playing back, and generating speed.
It's the interface between our human desire for speed and the digital world, which is, I think, a really optimistic take. You know, people worry that as cars become autonomous, we lose the soul of driving. But this suggests the soul is just moving. It's moving into the code.
That's a great point, and it poses a question for you listening. If speed is the language of our era, and our era is only getting faster, maybe we need Eurobeat or whatever comes next more than ever. We need a way to process all that acceleration.
The article's epilogue leaves us with this beautiful image. It says, the headlights that once lit up the mountain pass are now displays and speakers lighting up virtual spaces.
The music hasn't ended, it just changed where it runs. That's fantastic.
It really is. It reminds you that culture doesn't just die, it migrates. It moves from the analog world to the digital. But the core emotion, that thrill, it stays the same.
So the next time you hear that frantic tempo, don't just think of it as a 90s throwback. Think of it as the sound of your own internal clock speeding up to meet the future.
I think that is a perfect place to leave it. We went from the mountain pass to the metaverse in under 20 minutes.
It was quite the ride.
Thank you for listening to this deep dive into the future of Eurobeat and speed memory. Drive safe and keep listening.